Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. With that, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our first speaker tonight, Young Elle, who will share their experience, strength and hope for about 20 minutes. Young, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name's Young Lee. I'm a very grateful recovered addict. I'm so grateful to be alive. I still can't believe I've escaped from hell. And welcome to any newcomers. I like to think about step 10. I think about it and I call it in my mind the Bruce Lee step. Bruce Lee was like one of my idols growing up. He was the only person who looked a little bit like me and my dad on television. And he's a great spiritual teacher. But why I call step 10 the Bruce Lee step? There was a film that Bruce Lee was in, and he was training a young kid to fight. And they were fighting. And when they finished, they bowed to each other. And when you train in martial arts, you always look your opponent in the eye when you bow. But this kid didn't know what he was doing, so he went like this, and Bruce went, ah! And Bruce Lee says, never take your eye off your opponent. And for me, that summed, when I heard that, when I saw that, I thought, that's step 10. I've met the opponent and it's me. And the first instruction is I've got to watch out for these things that I discovered are my difficulties. These things like the resentment, selfishness, dishonest fear. And I was in meditation earlier on. And what kept coming to me was, I can't get to God, goodness, light, with the weight of the world on my shoulders. That just kept on coming into my mind. And then I thought about, it's my mind and it's my eyes when I'm asleep to the presence of God, the presence of goodness within my soul, that creates this really heavy world. And I feel really blocked and I feel really scared and I feel really impatient. And, as I danced through these steps, when I first went through them, 4 to 9 kind of almost like was this big reveal. It revealed to me my ego. It exposed this ego, this self-will that was so strong. And when I think about step 3, because for me, the steps kind of just start dancing into each other. And when I think about this decision, I think about the word incision, to cut away the self-will. And I think about all like these very holy people that go up into the mountains of the Himalayas and pray and meditate. And I thought they're trying to do the same thing. Trying to cut away the self-will that blocks me from the goodness, from God, from being useful. And so as I go through these steps, I start to suddenly see myself as I've never seen myself before. I knew I was broken. I knew I was a broken drug addict and alcoholic, but I didn't know how deep in the darkness I was. I had no idea how deluded to life I was. What's the word that I wrote down? Because I forget things. That's it. I love the word in the book, design for living. Like these steps, particularly step 10, it's almost like this perfect design once I've been through the rest of the steps and I can see a different truth. I can see that, when it says, now I can see it, now I see it clearly. And I was chatting to some new guys today and they said, oh, have you still got defects of character? And I said, no, of course, I'm full of them, of course. But what I said to them is, the longer, and look, I've only been in 6.5 years, so I'm a baby, but the longer I'm in, the more I see my flaws. The more, I did another step 5, I can't remember when it was, last year sometime. And I remember going in and I said, I've only got 3 resentments, there's not much there. And Donna laughed at me. And I saw how asleep I was. I thought I was really awake. But it's like, oh, I'm very asleep. Step 10, I think about it in many ways. The harmony step. The step that helps me to see when I'm arguing with reality. I was arguing with reality earlier on. I went for a sauna after work because I'm very lucky today and I don't hang out in crack houses anymore and I go to the sauna. And I'm in there meditating and there's a guy next to me, and he lay down next to me, put his feet near me. Oh, how dare he? I don't know about you, but I really do not like that. And in my mind was having an argument with this guy because I didn't like what he was doing. I was arguing with reality because the reality is he can do what he wants in there. So I literally said, God, please help me in this moment. And I'll give you a practical example how I live in this step. Very imperfectly, I must say. I'm just getting a little bit better, because you guys helped me with that. My daughter Rose, and some of you, because I keep sharing this, well, I'll share two things about her. She's a beautiful young lady, 15 years old. And for any new people on here, when I first came in, she told me she never wanted to speak to me again, you know, because I was that tornado roaring through her life, and I never thought this would happen. And people around me, my elders, says, Young, just get into this stuff and it will happen in her time, not yours. Because I wanted it now. And because I wanted it now, it was causing me pain. You know, that fear, that selfishness, etc., that I couldn't see back then. So one day I was having breakfast with my daughter Rose, and it was school time. And if anyone on here has a 15-year-old daughter, they're a bit moody. They're a bit moody. And I said, Morning, Rose, because I'm very annoying and I'm quite happy now. And I didn't used to be for years. And she looked at me and went, Ugh. I said, what are you doing at school today? She said, I don't know. I said, what do you mean? What's your favourite subject? I hate school. I hate everything about school. Oh, in a split second, fear gripped me. And how it looked like in my mind, it said, she's going to be a loser. She's going to leave school with no qualifications. She's going to get no job. She's going to be a drug addict like you. She's going to get a man that beats her in a split second. But luckily I have this practice and I've been doing it for a little bit of time. So how I watch these things, my body tells me when I'm awake. There was a terrible feeling in my gut. You know, that kind of knot in my stomach. My teeth were clenched. I thought, I'm watching. I thought, I'm in fear. I'm in fear. So if I hadn't been awake in that moment, I would have been driven by that fear. And then what would have followed in my actions would have been something like this. You need to buck up your ideas, young lady, or you're going to be a failure. And if I'd said that to her, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have said, oh, thank you, Daddy. I'm going to work really hard today now. Thank you so much. Of course she wouldn't. She would have argued. I would have argued back. And now I've got a little girl who I love going to school upset, crying. And maybe she will remember that moment for the rest of her life, like I remember those moments for the rest of my life. But I didn't do that because I was watching. And in that moment, when that fear gripped me so tight, I said, God, please help me. I don't know what to do. In that pause. And what came out of my mouth was, don't worry, you'll find something you love to do one day. And she came up to me and gave me a hug and kissed me and said, thanks, Daddy, and went to school. Now, I'm so thankful to have this program. In that moment, when I look back on that moment, I was at a turning point in that moment. A turning point. One word from me, from my self-will, from what I wanted, could have changed so much in that moment. But I had this practice. And so I asked God. And when she went to school, I picked up the phone and I discussed that moment with a few of my fellows, because I have to expose myself. I have to expose myself. And then I turned my attention to someone I could help. It just seems to come automatically. Sometimes no. Sometimes I'll stumble, I'll make the mistake, and maybe it's because I need to stumble and make the mistake in that moment. Because then I can see how flawed I am, and I'm still a baby, and please help me, God. Please help me just be a little bit of a better man. That's all I want to be. And so I love those instructions. And I was going to give two examples because she's on my mind today. She's just started dating. Oh my goodness me. She's just started dating. When my son Theo told me, I was driving and he said, "Do you know what Rose is doing today?" I said, "No." "She's on a date." I said, "Excuse me?" Like, I expect my daughter never to date. She's 15 years. I won't tell you what I was doing at 15 years old. But in that moment, I saw the fear again. I saw the fear. I saw some anger. I did, honestly, because I think every 15-year-old boy is going to be like I was, but they're not. And this young man is a very nice boy. He's into computer coding. You know, his mum comes around and picks them both up. And check this for cute. How cute is this? Their mum said to me, I went into the kitchen when I came back from work and they were both in there baking bread. I'm like, what? I was baking crack cocaine and they're baking bread. But if I didn't have this practice, I would have been round this guy's house. I wouldn't have been able to see it. These simple practices that keep me in harmony, that keep me able to see my humanness. It's so simple, but it's step 10 and 11. They've changed the way that I look at you. They've changed the way that I look at the world. They've changed my whole interaction with the world. I came into these fellowships, Cocaine Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, with a real frown on my face, a real suspicion about you. And it's changed. My heart has really softened. Every time that comes out of my mouth, I still can't believe it. I don't want to take this for granted. You know, I really hope I never take this moment for granted. Never, never, never. And also, I see step 10 as me kind of aligning my will with the will of God, with the will of goodness, with this more of a compassionate outlook to life, more of a soft walk, when I used to have a really hard walk. And I love the way in the big book. Where's my book? You know what? I'm glad Katie read out step 10 before I came on, because my mind went blank. And I thought, oh, what's step 10? That would have been pretty bad, wouldn't it? It says, I like the word continue. Why am I going to continue on this path? Because this is about this whole self-examination continuously, because God and Spirit, and this is infinite. I do not know where this is going. When I came in, I didn't know where it was going. I had no idea I would be sat here today with you at perfect peace and ease in my skin most of the time. I've been in some fear this week because I've had to go to the doctors and had some blood tests about some stuff. And I've had some fear. And again, I'm watching it. And even when the wind's blowing, I'm watching. I'm asking God, please help me. I'm discussing it. I've discussed it with a lot of you guys this week. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being there. And I know, the outcome is the outcome. But obviously my mind, being an alcoholic and a drug addict, has gone to the worst possible scenario. And oh God, I'm just getting the hang of life. Don't take me now. But this practice helps me to see this. And this continuation, I'm going to continue to take personal inventory. And I love a bit in the 12 and 12. It's on step 11, but these two kind of merge into each other for me. Because in step 11, where it says I forgot. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. Well, isn't step 10 a little bit like that? Doesn't that improve my conscious contact with God? Who's doing the watching? Who's watching these things? It seems to be this inner and outer flow of goodness and me who wants what he wants, selfish, self-centered, and there's something else doing the watching, the Spirit, something a bit deeper. So maybe 10 improves my conscious contact because I'm continuing to watch for me. So if I'm watching, that must mean that I'm awake when I'm awake. because sometimes I'm asleep. That's where I was in the 12 and 12. It's got a beautiful couple of lines, and we named a meeting after it, after one of the two of the words. It says something like self-examination, prayer, and meditation. Used separately, these are powerful forces, something like that. But used together, they create an unshakable foundation for life. I know that's true today. I have a little bit of experience. You know, the examples I've given you, I would have crumbled before. Health stuff, crumbled. My daughter, crumbled. Unshakable foundation, strong in here when the wind is blowing. And I love this stuff. These 12 steps. This stuff that now isn't just words, and I'm quoting my friend Brenda. You know, these words off the page have gone into my heart and they've become my walk that I do today. You guys have helped me to see the beauty of what we do here. The continuation. I'm going to continue to do this personal inventory because it's when I look at you when I seem to be in pain. In the sense when my eyes, rather than God's eyes, look at you, I see your flaws. I seem to be an expert in looking at your defects of character. I criticize, I argue, I control, and then I'm in pain. So what an amazing practice, what an amazing design for living. Often we talk about step 10, 4 to 9. I like to think about it 1 to 9, because isn't lack of power still my dilemma? In step 10, you know, I am powerless against being fearful, selfish, dishonest. They seem to just come into my mind because I'm such a flawed human being. But I'm a little bit less flawed today, I think. I don't know though. And then in step 10, and this always blows my mind, the step 10 promises, which have come true in my life. The problem of alcohol and drugs has been removed, and I can't believe it because I used and drunk from the age of 11 to 43. Long time, 20 of those years on heroin and methadone and being the walking dead, and this problem has been removed. And when you first read that to me, I don't know if I believed it, but I believed you because there was an authenticity about what was coming out from your heart. I could hear... Well, I know I could hear God through you. I didn't know then. I just thought these guys are something that I haven't come across before. And I made sure I was around a lot of you guys all the time. I needed that when I first come in. I still need it, man. But then, and I love this bit in the step 10 bit in the big book, where it gives me like a warning after the step 10 promises. It's almost like this is the milk and honey. This is, for me, when I come in, that's like the promised land to just have the problem removed. I'm like, I can't imagine that because I've never been there before. I've been sober before, but I've always struggled with sobriety. I was always angry in sobriety. And you guys are telling me the problem can be removed. But then the warnings, it says, and I take these to heed, if that's even the right word. I'll stay this way only, well, I better read it. I'll react. This is how I'm going to react. So long as I keep in fit spiritual condition. So if I wanted to change the way I look and look all buff and muscly and stuff, if I went to the gym 4 times a week, I used to go, if I did that, change my diet, eat more healthy food, get a PT, go swimming. I do that for 1 year, consistently, persistent, 100% I would go through change, 100%. But if now, I get too busy, I get a new girlfriend, and blah, 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 start eating Five Guys all the time, I would go back to how I was before. And I see this exactly the same, the spiritual condition. I can't rest on my laurels, like it says. I can't rely on yesterday's prayers, yesterday's meditation, yesterday's bookwork responses to keep me in fit spiritual condition. I have to keep it current. What have I done today for someone else? How much time have I spent with God today? How awake have I been today? When I do my end of night review, I'll see, and I'm sure I've been asleep in many areas of my life. But thank God at least I have a practice that I can follow because you guys have taught me how to follow that. And I'm so, so very grateful. Thank you for the invite. It's always a privilege to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Young. Thanks for your service this evening. Great share. Okay, so step 11, sort through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us to give the power and carry that out. It now gives me great pleasure to welcome our second speaker tonight, Jaynie M, who will share their experience, strength and hope for about 20 minutes. Jaynie, over to you.
Oh, namaste, Kate. Namaste, everybody. Yeah. My name's Jaynie. I'm a very grateful recovered addict. Step 11, sort through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. That is exactly what I'm going to do right now, because I've got to get myself out of the way, because naturally I'm just fearful. On my own, I'm fearful. And I change the way that I am to be validated. So what I want to do is I want to allow God to demonstrate through me and just be a messenger. You know, I don't have to let God in. I've got to let him out. God's already in me. I want to thank you, Young, for your share, you know, for all of your service that you do. Thank you so much. You know, I've got so much respect for you and love. And I also want to, you know, just show some respect for all those that are on here that have walked before us and keep the path open. You know, I'm so, so grateful for those guys that kept these rooms open, ready for me to walk in, you know. So with that, I just want to try and get out of the way. God, I ask that you help me to set aside everything I think I know about me, everything I think I know about recovery, everything I think I know about sharing. I ask you to help me lay aside, God, everything I think I know about prayer and meditation. I ask you to help me lay aside everything I think I know about the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I ask you, God, to help me to do this so that I may bring a new experience to this Zoom, to these people, to myself, in a place that we've never been before and we are never going to come back to again. I ask you to help me lay aside, God, everything I just think I know. Amen. Yeah, my name's Jaynie and I'm a very grateful recovered addict. You know, sort through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. Welcome to anyone that's new. It probably sounds crazy. Look at me. I'm a rock bottom drunk and addict. I'm socially feral. I'm selfish and self-centered. I'm dishonest. I'll steal anything off you if it makes me feel better. You know? You'll cross over the road when I walk down the street. I'm free. I'm free. Do you know what? I feel quite emotional. Because just like Young, I love this stuff. I love it. Do you know what it does? It changes everything. Sort through prayer and meditation. You know, I had a conversation the other day. Ladies on here. And I said, I'm a seeker. Oh yeah, what are you seeking? I'm seeking God. Yeah. No. God's inside of me. You know, the doctor's opinion says, and I do quote from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous because it's the proven route. My opinion is dangerous. The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous has saved millions upon millions of lives. Why wouldn't I use that as my foundation to carry a message to you guys? You know? The doctor's opinion says I need to have some form of moral psychology. That means I need to know right from wrong. I know right from wrong. I need a spiritual experience which will get me connected to power so I can do right from wrong. And a sponsor took me through a 12-step program of recovery. We uncovered the truth about me. I was shown a solution. Followed the directions. For the first time in my life, I just did what I was told. For the first time, I just said, I don't know. Because I'm a fighter, you know. Don't tell me what to do. And for the first time, I just shut up and I put up and I showed up and I did what I was asked to do. And as a result of that, I had this spiritual experience. And in step 2, it talks about that the fundamental idea of God is inside every single one of us. And that's where I discovered God inside of me. And here's the real beauty of it. I had to let God out. I didn't have to let him in. He was with me the whole time. So what am I seeking? So I'm looking to find something. I'm attempting to find something. I've already got God, so I can't be looking for him. He's already there. You know, and I like to look up words because those cats knew what they were talking about. They were highly educated, these guys that wrote the book. So to improve it is to develop or increase my mental capacity either by education or experience. Conscious, having knowledge of something. Love. I want to experience love. I want conscious contact with love. That's what I'm seeking. I'm seeking the feeling of improving my conscious contact, my relationship, my contact, my communication with love. You see, because drugs and alcohol, they were there, I believed in them, but I wasn't going to have an experience with them unless I took them. And that's what I've got to do with God. That's what I've got to do with love. I've got to take certain actions to experience the feeling that God is with me. And I do. Every day, anyone that's new on here, you never have to drink and use again. Never. You know. Why? Because you're here. That's why. It's that simple. You know, just sit down with someone and read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous together. You know, so step 1 tells me that I've got no choice and no control. Straight away, my first prayer, this is how simple it was. I dropped to my knees and I went, God, please put an end to this. I can't do this anymore. I want to die. My little girl's outside and I can't even be a mother to her. My son's run away from home. I don't even know where my 15-year-old daughter is at this stage. Social services are all over me and I want to die. I've got 4 beautiful children and I can't be a mother to them. You know, how much more powerless can a person be? I'm their main caregiver and I'm causing them more harm than anyone else on this planet. I hate myself. I come in here disgusted. I was an abuser. I was abused. So I started seeking this relationship with God and I didn't even know I was doing it then. And then step 1 tells me that I've got no choice and no control. You know, I've got a head that lies to me. It will talk me into doing something that I don't want to do. And then I've got a body that will not let me have control. It will take completely over once I put it inside me. So I've got no choice and no control. That's what step 1 tells me. But step 2, you know. So now I'm going to start improving my conscious contact with God. So how sick am I? The more sick I find out I am, the more willing I'm going to be to seek this relationship with God. You know, the more desperate I am, the more in need I am of something more powerful than me, the harder I'm going to graft. So I ask you, you know, anyone in here that's struggling, how clean do you want to be? How free do you want to be? Because I'll tell you how high I want it to be. I'd step over my own children to go and use. I'd leave my children alone to go and use. I'd leave my children with an abuser to go and use. Will I take the same effort and wanting and needing in my recovery? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, so step 2 then tells me the fundamental idea of God is inside every single one of us. Search diligently inside yourself. It is only there he may be found. Then it says, God either is or he isn't. God is everything or he is nothing. What is your choice to be? I've now got a choice. I've got a choice. Do I want to choose that life or do I want to choose God? I chose God. And you know what? I haven't always got it perfect, but I'll tell you what the beautiful thing is about God. No human power can restore me to sanity. And I can't rely upon human power because there have been times in my recovery, I'm not talking about, because this is a program that treats my sobriety, because when I stop using, my life gets worse. It doesn't get better. So this program doesn't treat my drinking and my using. It treats my sobriety. It treats my life. It's a design for living without it. It's my solution. And there have been times in my recovery that I have faltered. And I haven't exactly practiced the principles. But you know what the great thing about it is? When I go back to standing at that turning point, God is there with open arms and he just looks at me and he says, Jaynie, keep coming back. And every time he's done that for me, when others have turned their back on me, when others have scorned and frowned upon me, when God has continued to love me, because I can't fall out with God, because trust me, if you've done the things I've done and God's still there, there's no way you can fall out with him. He's proved beyond reasonable doubt that he loves me unconditionally. When someone or something loves you that much and you know it, then you're onto a good thing. So step 11, suggest through prayer and meditation, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. So at the beginning, it was just a plea of desperation. And then in step 3, I get on my knees with a fundamentally really a stranger. And I offer myself to God. I ask him to relieve me of the bondage of self, because that's what I'm abandoning, Jaynie. And I ask him to make me a demonstration of his power. Because what I have learned is that God works his best miracles through the most broken. The most broken. He can really show off what he can do. And every single time that life has shown up and given me a challenge, I lost a baby when I was 5 months pregnant. I watched my brother die of cancer when I was 3 years in. A man prolific to me coming into recovery, all in. A young man was murdered in front of me when I was at work one evening. God never left my side. Fellowship never left my side. People like me don't live life on life's terms. We die pitiful, alone, in dark and sordid places without anyone around us. Not me, I've been forgiven, and I can forgive today, which is even more beautiful. I can sit in a room where maybe some people don't want me there sometimes, but I can be comfortable in that fact, knowing that it's okay as long as I practice what God wants me to practice, and that's love. So of a morning, what I do is I surrender. As I've gone through the program in step 4, I pray to God. I asked him to help me mould an ideal around my sex ideals. Have I followed it perfectly? No, I certainly have not. Do you know what I mean? I'm human. No, I have not. And I've done plenty of inventory on it and all, I can tell you. And other people have probably done plenty of inventory on it and all. Probably made pretty good reading as well in some stages, but that's okay. Don't take myself too seriously. And then in step 6, I've become willing, and it's kind of like step 2, but I'm more specific, because in step 2, I haven't got a clue what I'm trying to be sane from. All I know is I don't want what I've got, and it's like, listen, you can have it, whatever you are, just take it. Get it away from me quick, because it's really hurting me. But when I'm in step 6, because in 4 and 5, I've met myself, I'm starting to differentiate the truth from the false. The abnormal, the normal is now becoming the normal. I don't want this version of Jaynie, I want this new one. So in 7, I now ask him again, my creator, it's becoming more personal. I ask that you have all of me, good and bad, because I know I'm not going to be perfect. I'm improving this communication with him. It's becoming more of a conversation. Now I'm asking him as well, not just to relieve me of the bondage of self, but to take away my difficulties, the victory over them, That's in step 3, will bear witness to those I would help with your power, your love, your way of life. And in step 7, I'm asking him to grant me strength to go ahead and do that. But it's contingent on my fit spiritual condition, as Young spoke about. Step 10, the power of now. When I wake up in the morning and I surrender, what am I surrendering to? I'm surrendering to God's way. And God's way is step 10. Dishonesty, resentment, fear, and self-pity, they have no place in God's realm, in the spiritual realm. They block me off. They block me off. You know, if I've got resentments and fears and I'm trying to communicate with God through prayer and meditation, it's like trying to make a phone call in a lift. I'm not going to get through. I'm going to get blocked off. I'm going to be talking to myself. So I surrender in the morning. I have this conversation with God, and it's really, you know, my little boy stays with me at weekends now. Me and his dad has kind of swapped roles, which is beautiful. We love it. You know, it's working really well. And I came down the other morning and I forgot that my son was there. And I'm walking around and I'm chatting to God. Hey God, Jaynie's here. And that's how I do it. It's like, I'm here. What would you have me be? I've got this, and that to do today. And, oh, please. And I know that this person, I've got to do an inventory with that one, a property inventory. Please, you know, I need to really be on my game because I want to show some love. I want to be the person that I wanted to be, show up for me. And as I'm having this conversation, suddenly my 12-year-old son walks into the room and he says, all right, Mum. I go, hello. He went to me, who are you talking to? I said, well, God, of course. He went, really? He went, all right. He said, if you was talking to God, he said, does he answer you all the time? He went, how? I said, well, you see this morning, Vinny, I said, when I got up, I said to God, show me that I'm loved. I went, and guess what? He went, yeah. I said, you walked in the room. And my 12-year-old son is a computer buff. He just looked at me and he went, I'll take that. But that's God. You know, like, as long as I stay aware, as long as I stay awake, as long as I practice these principles, honesty, hope, faith, courage, you know, as long as I go through my day, constantly pausing, turning and asking, because there's a part on page 85, 86, or 7, I apologise. It says, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated, and I've put we pray when agitated, you know, and ask for the right thought or action. Who am I asking? That's prayer and meditation. If I'm asking a question, I'm going to wait for an answer. It's God. You know, and at the end of the day, I sit on my bed and I'm like, hey, God, how's your day been? But it's been busy. You know, he's my friend. I want to improve this conscious contact with him. And as a result of that, I've got through all these challenges in life. But I've also had some really great things that have happened to me. You know, I was a young woman who got removed from school at 13 by the police. I'm a Bachelor of Science in Psychology today. What does my recovery look like with God in it? I love helping other people. I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what God's done. God's given me a purpose. I was dying and I hated myself and I didn't think I was worth living. And then God stepped into the equation and he said to me, do you know what? He said, we're going to change this. He said, I'm going to give you a purpose in life. He said, I'm going to give you a job. He said, and what I want you to do is I want you to go out and find people that used to feel like you did. And I want you to help them. And I want you to show them what I've done for you. And hopefully they'll recover too. As a result of that, I've been able to take my own son that ran away from home and told people I was dead through a 12-step program of recovery. He's 9 years clean and sober. However, he doesn't talk to me today. But I'm not going around trying to kick his door in and telling him that he's out of order because I saved his life. I didn't. 12-step fellowship and God saved his life. He's got every right in the world to call me a trigger and tell me he doesn't want to talk to me because I misbehaved. And I was honest with him about it. Now, I'm out of the outcome game today. I didn't get the result that I wanted. But what I do know is if I practice what is clearly outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor's on it. You know, if I allow my sponsor to know that he sponsors me, if I have home groups, if I reach out to as many people as I can to help them carry a message, if I take responsibility for myself today in step 10, if I realise that I started doing this to save my own life, but now I stay and do it because it saves lives and I've got a responsibility that I'm a hand that reaches out and I want to be a safe one. If I do that stuff, when my son, God willing, decides to come back and talk to me, I'll be a better version than the one that he stopped talking to. And when my daughter, who I love so much, decides to throw the towel in and surrender to her madness, she might just go, do you know what? What she's doing over there is all right, I might have a bit of that. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when I get out of the way, it works. And if it'll work for me, it can work for anybody on this Zoom. It's an absolute guarantee and a fact. My sponsor says this program has got 100% success rate for those that thoroughly follow this path. And that has been my experience. When I decided to thoroughly follow clear-cut directions, I have never had to pick up a drink or a drug or any mind-altering substance in over 14 years. I've never killed anyone, and I haven't killed myself. And that's a miracle. My life today is about freedom. It's about God, and it's about you guys. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Jaynie. Thank you so much for your service this evening. I'm going to let Young back in now with you for a 10-minute spiritual discussion between yourself, wherever you see fit. So the floor's both of yours, and we've got 10-minute discussion time for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
That was fantastic. So good to hear. Me and Jaynie had a laugh this afternoon. I phoned her up and I said, I'm not looking forward to the conversation afterwards. What are we going to say? Should we plan something? We're like, no, let's just flow. So I've got a question, Jaynie. Over the years, how's the steps 10, 11, the practice, how's it changed for you over the years?
That's a good question. Well, in the beginning, I didn't really know. I just used to talk to myself a lot. I was told to write it down quickly on a piece of paper, and then I was told to do it on an app. And the truth of the matter is that the last 16 months have probably been the best recovery that I've had, because I practiced step 10 just exactly as it tells me in the book. That when these crop up, I ask God at once, and the thing is, I used anywhere. I didn't care less where I used at the end, 24/7. I did it to survive. So now I don't care where I pause when I'm agitated or doubtful or frightened or fearful. I'm not in fear of what people think about me, my dependence upon God. And then I do share it with another person. I think the greatest thing, the biggest thing that has changed is the way I've got frontline people now. Because I've continued to do step 10, I've got this great frontline of people, but I'm also very aware that they're not all closed-mouthed friends. Some are really good at helping me, but they're not very good at keeping secrets. So I've just learned to love people regardless, and I think that what's happened is I just learning to surrender quicker, I think, because I practice it more and more and more. And the more I get positive results, the more it strengthens my belief that if I continue to do it, then it will continue to get better. The old timers used to say, it just gets better. I didn't have a clue what they were talking. I just thought that meant I got more time. Do you know what I mean? Now I understand. It means more freedom. It means more freedom. I hope that, I don't know if that answers it. But yeah.
Thanks, Jaynie.
I was going to ask you, Young, who's your favourite sponsee?
Well, obviously you. But do you know what I wrote down when you said, I haven't killed anyone? I wrote down miracle. Miracle. That people like me and you have not killed someone.
That's
or
right.
been killed. And to develop along the way. And when you were answering that question, I thought one of the ways it's changed for me over the years is that it's become like I used to train in karate when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My dad made me go, right? Because my dad was a bit of a tough guy. I wasn't. And I'm one away from black belt, right? But then I had to get into fights.
Yeah.
And then I had to fight bigger kids. Anyway, I'm going off the point. My point was, when I first started, it was very mechanical. I had to think. And now with this practice, it just kind of goes into the flow. And the word pause I pause a lot, not just when I'm agitated or doubtful. It's in the pause I'm watching really well. It's in the
Yeah.
pause I feel very, very awake. And I could go on and on about the step 11 practice because, I love the big book, the simplicity of the practices that I do as directed, but then I do a lot of other things that I've just been drawn towards. My soul has been drawn towards other practices also.
I love that. Sorry, I had to, that you just made me think. I just pause sometimes. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't actually have to be agitated or doubtful. I actually just enjoy spending time with God. Sometimes like, I'm driving along, like, I never have anything on in the car anymore. Just drive along, like, being at peace with God. Yeah, I just pause for the sake of it sometimes. I don't always need a reason. I just seeking that conscious contact with God because it's become a part of my daily living, my design for living. You know, I wanted to ask you it, but the turning point. What would you say that you could really look at your recovery and say was the biggest turning point in your recovery?
Do you know what? And it's only the last year I've really recognised this, and I've shared it quite a lot. When I was in that last psychiatric unit, and I was so desperate, Jaynie. Like I thought, I knew I was going to use and drink again, and I knew I would die if I did that. And this lady, this elderly German lady, who came up to me, knelt beside me, and put this gold angel in my. That it might sound a bit. Oh, it was a turning point. Something changed in that moment. And this has only just come to me. And remember, I'm talking about a guy who didn't pray and never even thought about God. When I went into that place, and I must add a caveat to this, I had no socks. So that's where I come from. I had no socks. A kind lady from Cocaine Anonymous brought me socks in. Anyway, going off the point. But that was huge as well. This lady giving me socks meant everything in that moment. Do you know, that meant the world. But I fell on my knees and prayed. This only came to me like a few months ago. It just came into my head. Because I remember the room. It had like this plastic mattress with wheels on the bed, and every 2 hours they'd check on you to make sure you hadn't like killed yourself. So to answer your question, Jaynie, that I believe that was a turning point for me, man.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think mine was, I was in and out of another fellowship, and for 3.5 years, and there was a lady, a wonderful lady, her name was Maureen. She had phenomenal amount of clean time, but wouldn't tell anyone how long it was. And I'd never really heard her that much, but then all of a sudden, I come back from this horrendous relapse, and I heard her, and she said, every morning when I wake up, I say the step 3 and 7 prayer. And I thought, I've got to find this step 3 prayer. It was just something about it, because she was in every meeting and she kept saying it. And I thought, I've got to find this step 3 prayer. And what I did was I Googled it on the internet, and I found it, and I wrote it in my book so that I could memorize it. And what happened was I was sitting with my niece, and she said to me, I'm so proud of you. I think I was about 3 or 4 days sober. And I looked at her and I just said, I just want to be a good mum. And I remember I just started weeping. Like I was weeping. And I think it was the turning point there was, it was the first time when I'd actually, because that was what I'd said. I said, I don't want to hurt my children anymore. But I meant it. I felt it. Like, it was the first time, like when Bill says in Bill's story, like, after all, there had been much happiness, what I wouldn't give to make amends now. It was the first time I genuinely cared and thought about what I'd been doing to people. It wasn't just about me. And I remember I went upstairs and I got on my knees and I did the step 3 like a mantra, and it just felt like I was shooting through space. And I knew I was going to be all right. In that moment, I knew God was there. And the very next day, this gentleman approached me, offered me a lift, and offered to be my temporary sponsor. And the next day, we was in the book together. And it was like a turning point. And And I sort of see it, I sort of thought, wow. Like, but I didn't see it at first. I was about 6 or 7 months in before I noticed it. And it was like the step 3 prayer just become everything for me. And that was when praying just becomes so important. It was like I couldn't live without it. You know, much has happened, but it was a massive turning point for me. So, you know, because then he said, I want you to pray. I went, I'm already doing it. I'm already doing it. You know, so yeah. Yeah. I mean, quickly, have you got a favourite prayer, Young?
Like the Thomas Merton prayer. But do you know what? Sometimes for me, okay, two things. One of my teachers, who I was drawn towards very early in this elderly lady who always talked about God. She talked about the Bible a lot. We'd go for walks. She'd talk about the Bible, but say, but I'm not religious. and I said, you know about a lot about, anyway. She used to say, I said, how do you pray? And she said, how do I pray, Young? I was taught this by a nun. She said, every breath is a prayer. And that just blew me away. Like that just, she was so awake. I'm not there yet. I'm no way there. She's so awake that every breath for her is a breath of spirit, of life, of thank you, God. And I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I think our time's up. Thanks, Jaynie.
Yeah. Thank you, Young.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Young. Thank you, Jaynie. That was absolutely lovely. Okay, so it's now the Q&A part of the meeting where we're going to come in and ask the speakers any questions relating to steps 10 and 11. Please be mindful to stick to questions only. Digital timer will be put up for 2 minutes, and this gives as many people an opportunity to ask a question. If you have drunk or used today, please refrain from sharing. However, if you have a question that you'd like to stay on at the end of the meeting, and somebody here will be happy to listen and support you and answer that. So the room is now open for raised hand sharing. So please raise your hands to ask these guys questions. Okay, I see Ella. Ella, do you want to come in with your question?
There we go. Good evening, guys. I'm Ella and I'm an addict. Thank you, Katie, for holding the meeting, and thank you so much, Young and Jaynie. It was so lovely. So I got a question for both of you, which is out of the instructions out of the big book, where it discusses, you know, the instructions of which we should practice step 10. Out of those instructions, which ones specifically have been the most challenging for you both in your journey? Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Go on, Jaynie. Ladies first. The most challenging. Well, let's have a look. What, as in watch, ask, discuss, amend, turn. I like the simplicity of that. Well, I guess perhaps watching, because I was so asleep.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm so asleep. Okay, I'll give you this example very quickly. When I first used to send my end of night review, and I'd send it to my sponsor on a little app, and I'd go through the questions, and I'd go, was I selfish today? Nope. Resentful? Nope. No. I wasn't lying. I was just asleep. So looking like saying that, it's coming out of my mouth, I think probably watching, because I had to wake up a little bit more because I've been in a slumber for what felt like 100 years. I hope that was helpful. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely sharing it with another person, discussing it, because it's only really in the last year, if you can believe it, that I've even recognised that the word is discuss and not tell someone. I mean, how mad is that? Talk about remaining teachable. So I think that the thing that I found the most difficult was I just thought that if I text it over to somebody, like I'd actually shared it. And that was the end of it. I didn't need to have this discussion about it. So, yeah, for me, it was sharing it with someone else, because I'd think, oh gosh, they don't want to know about that. This is ridiculous. And I can't talk about that again because I've already mentioned it 3 times this week. You know, I think that fear around annoying somebody and getting on their nerves, and then as well, like, oh, I can't really share it with them because this is quite sensitive. What if it gets out? But then I've really learned that I am as sick as my secrets. I need to be accountable to somebody. And that means discussing it with someone, because I've got to take it out of my head, because that's where the problem is. And when I take it out of my head, I can deal with it with my heart when I've got another person and God comes into the equation. So, yeah.
Thank you for your question, Ella. And next
Thanks,
up, we've
Ella.
got Kaffers. Do you want to come in with a question, please?
Hi, my name is Kathers, and thanks to everyone for your service tonight. My question is, have you ever thought of a resentment as justified? How hard have you had to pray for even the willingness to consider making amends for that resentment or justified resentment? That's two in one. I'm being greedy, sorry.
The great one.
I'll jump in if you don't mind, because one's just come into my mind. When I was 16 years old, I was just 16. I was just a child, and my mum had met some random guy and moved him into our house. And I was acting I'd smash his car up, I'd pull a knife out. I was an angry kid, and so she chucked me out of home. And so that resentment was so strong. It was in me for 20 years, maybe more than that. And I thought that was never going to go because I really justified it. How could a mother choose some random guy over her own son and abandon him? You know, and it went round and round, and like it says, maybe in the 12 and 12, justified anger it's for normal people. It's something like that, you know, the grouch and the brainstorm, do blah blah blah. But when I did this step 4 and 5, and I shared that my mum's an alcoholic, well, how can she do any better than that? She's like me, selfish, self-centered. She was doing the best she could do. And you know, but just, I hope this answers your question. I never thought I would get over that, and I would have never got over it as long as I justified it. But I suddenly was prepared to look at it from a different angle because it was more important that I become free rather than that I was right. Jaynie.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah. As soon as you asked it, the one that come to mind was all through when I did my fearless and thorough inventory on my step 4, and even when I shared the stuff in step 5, it was around these guys that had abused me when I was a little girl. There was a paedophile ring, and they were still on my hit list. You know, they were still on my hit list. These guys were going to die, and I thought I'd get really well, and then I'll sort them out, and I got right up to step 9. And then I was going out to make amends, and I made this particular amends to somebody, and then I gave them the opportunity to let me know how I could put it right and if they had anything to say to me. And I was really shocked with what they said. It was like I wasn't expecting it, to the point that when I walked away from there, I thought, how on earth am I ever going to be forgiven for such a thing? And I dropped to my knees and I was crying, and I said, God, please God, like, how am I going to be forgiven? And he said to me, because you've got to learn to forgive. He said, you've got to learn to forgive. And what came out of it was I made a decision from that moment, and I know that this was God, because on my own I wouldn't do this stuff, because this was a justified resentment. I played no part in this stuff, you know. And I made a decision to make a donation once a month to a paedophile charity. And it's only a £5 a month, you know. But my reasoning was that they have as much right as me to recover from their mental illness. I'm not God. It's not my decision to make. And as a result of that has grown into, you know, sometimes I think, what if someone has recovered as a result of some of that money, and then another little girl or another little boy didn't have to go through that warped sense of reality like I did? You know, and I think that for me was the greatest one, and the freedom that I got from that to be able to go on and grow and enlarge in my spiritual life has been phenomenal. Because if I'd have stayed in that resentment, there's no way, you know, I would have been suspicious. My relationships would have been even worse than what they have been, and some of them ain't been that good. So probably a good job that I did grow in that way, you know. But yeah, you know, a justified resentment will kill you as quick as what an unjustified one will. It's as simple as that. But I hope that answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathers, for your question. Next question, Jerome, do you want to come in, please?
I'm Jerome. I'm very grateful recovering alcoholic addict. Thank you for the meeting. Thank you for your share, Young. And thank you, Jaynie, for your share. I got a lot from it. I've written a load of questions down, but I haven't got enough time. So basically, I struggle really bad with my fear, and that ends up me getting angry and running on self-will. How do I get through all that? How do I get rid of my fear?
Me. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Jerome. Sorry, I apologise. It's a great question. I can only really relate my experience. You know, in the beginning, I was so full of anxiety and fear. I'd sit in a meeting and my hands would sweat. I'd literally shake inside, and I knew that I had to share because I had a message, and I would continue to do that week in and week out. You know, fear of people, economic insecurity, and I believe that the way that I've got through that fear is through my nightly review. When I sit down, I write. I have paper and pen, and I say, was I afraid today? Did I die from anything? You know, my continuous practicing of these principles of the program of depending upon God has awakened me to so many different, you know, the peeling back of the onion. I used to hate that when I used to say it. So, oh God, don't liken me to an onion. But it is peeling back those layers. Most of my fears are trauma responses from when I was a child. That's what it is. I've got this imagined, you know, false evidence appearing real. And that's what it is like. And when I share it with another human being, I immediately turn to somebody. I'm very fortunate that where I work now as well, because where I've continued on this path, I'm really surrounded by like-minded people that I can trust and turn to and go, do you know what? I've got this fear. And they're like, well, sit down, feel it. Where do you think it's coming from? What is it really about? And I discuss it and I look what the fear is around, you know, and then I resolutely turn my thoughts to someone who's less fortunate than me, and it goes. And I keep practicing that, and eventually I build this new habit, this new pathway where this fear is going to be sort of like it gets cast to one side. It just works. I mean, I don't know if that helps you, but prayer and meditation, trust God, clean house, help others. Trust God, chop wood, carry water. And it will get better. It will get easier.
Thank you, Jaynie.
Thank you for your question, Jerome. So next up, we've got Jake S. Do you want to come in with a question, Jake?
Yeah, thanks for taking the meeting, and it's a question for both of you, really. But thank you both for your shares. So when you was really like early on in your recovery, did you struggle around prayer and meditation, and did you feel at times that you couldn't really feel the contact, if that makes any sense? What did you do to try and improve that?
Okay, thanks, Jake. My mind was very busy when I came in. I came from a psych unit, so it was really busy. Oh, worrying about it. And so my teachers just said, just stare out the window for a minute. That's meditation. Just go for a walk along the beach. That's meditation. Walk in a forest. That's meditation. Don't try and sit there for 20 minutes like that, because that's unrealistic if you haven't practiced this stuff. That's what they taught me. My prayers, Jake, when I first come in was like, please help me not kill someone in rehab. Please just help me get through today. Please help me. I didn't know what, and the second part of your question, was I feeling? No, I wasn't feeling it. I was feeling terrible. But what I know today, my experience has been, it's only after a bit of time that I feel the effects of prayer and meditation. After I've been doing it every day for maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, meditation, I don't feel the effects of meditation when I'm meditating. So after I've been doing it for a little bit of time, I feel like I'm meditating when I'm not meditating, but I don't feel it at the time. So I guess it's, for me, I had to stop trying and just continue to do these. I was just copying people. The ones that were well seemed to talk about doing X, Y, and Z, and I just copied them. But I didn't do it for very long. But I did do it every day. That's it. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. You're right, Jake. Of course, good question. Do you know what? At the beginning, much like young, I didn't even know what I was doing. Most of the time when I meditated, I'd lay down and I'd just fall asleep, you know, which was a good thing because I couldn't sleep in the early days. So I kind of liked it, and I never really tried to improve much on it from that. But then as time went on, and I did start to practice to sit quietly, you know, I knew that I couldn't silence my mind, and what I found is that suddenly things would come to me when I was in my quiet time, my contemplation, like the moments when I really wanted and needed God and he was there. And at the time I didn't realise it. Like when I asked God to put an end to it and someone appeared on Facebook with a circle of chairs and it was a meeting and God gave me a meeting. When I was at the hospital, my brother was dying and I prayed and meditated and I walked through the hospital and he comes to me with a message on the wall, to thine own self be true. I had the coin in my hand from AA. All of these things, the more I practiced it, the more I started to realise, and a little trick that I would play, right, is like my thinking, I'd play with it. Because I've got like this ADHD mind, so I wouldn't actually try and stop my thoughts. I'd pretend that I could move them about and I'd make them into little cars and things like that. Like I actually used the things that made my thinking difficult to make my prayer and meditation easier, if that makes any sense. Like I used everything at my disposal that God had given me to improve the methods that I had to improve my conscious contact with him. But it was through practice. I never got on a bike and rode it without stabilisers the first time. I had to keep trying. I hurt myself a few times. And it's exactly the same with this spiritual path. I've got to keep practicing. And the more I practice, the better it gets.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jake, for your question. Next up, Babe, do you want to come in with your question?
I do. Hi, kids. And yeah, interesting. Young said he got the vision when he quit trying. And Jaynie said she has to keep trying. I am so confused. And the book says that we must carry the vision of God's will for us all the time, every day. And what is your vision? Not the mechanics, but what is your vision of what God's will is? And has it changed over the years?
Sorry, babe. Can you repeat that? What's my vision of
Hell,
God's
you mean
will?
I gotta remember what I said? What an order! I can't go through with it. Okay, the book says we must carry the vision of God's will with us always. And has the vision, not just the mechanics to get to the vision, but what is your vision of God's will today, and has it changed over the years?
Lovely. Love that question, babe. The vision of God's will for me today is just really, really simple. To carry love into all of my affairs, to try and practice compassion, to try and be useful, to help other human beings on this path. And how has it changed over the years? I think it's just become a little bit clearer what I'm here for, what my purpose is. I have a purpose, and it's just become clearer and clearer. I think, babe. Yeah, I think that's it. Love the vest, man. Love that. Thank you, babe.
That's such a great question. God's vision, I don't even think I really considered it at the beginning that there was a vision for me. I just thought that I had to go out and carry this message and help as many people as I possibly could. But today, yeah, it's changed. It's like God's vision for me is to just be at one with everybody for serenity, because it says that nothing else will ensure, immunity is working with others. But it also says, see to it that your relationship with him is right and great events will come to pass. God's vision for me is to know him. It's to know him. That's what I'm seeking, that experience, to know him, that connection, that contact. And it just gets more comfortable. The more, I don't know, it's right what you say. The less I try to know God, the easier it is to know him. It's a contradiction of terms, isn't it? It's paradoxical, but it works. It just does. But I think I just had to get into a lot of pain to get to that point, and it's like people, I'm really glad that people challenged me, because I had to lean into him even more, which is even crazier, isn't it? Because you think I'd be leaning into them because I need them to like me, but it's not. The more I lean into God, the more comfortable it gets and the more I know God, because the more he knows me. Yeah. Thanks, babe. That was a lovely question.
Thank you, babe, for your question. I can see we've got like 1 minute left, so if I'm all right, Jaynie, I'd like to jump in with a question for you, please. Have you ever had a resentment that is a bit of a repeat offender, so you constantly get the same one popping up again? And if you have, how do you deal with this repeat offender resentment, please?
I actually, in my early recovery, I had one where I actually said, because everything was done on paper then, I actually said I'm going to put 2 pieces of cardboard around it, make it into a book and call it The One That Wouldn't Go Away. Right? And it was with a particular another member, and they just like every time I shared, every time I said anything, they cross-shared, they attacked me. And it was awful, and I actually thought this is the one that's going to push me over the edge. And the way that I would deal with it was I didn't want my idea was, would I want this person to relapse? No. So I had to lean into God. I had to just deal with it the way that the book outlined it to me. And then what happened was, when my brother was dying of cancer, there was some kerfuffle on the train station and I couldn't get to my sponsor at the time. And I'd had this massive breakdown to the fact that they actually thought I was going to commit suicide at Windsor train station, but I was just so broken. And I managed to get to a meeting that night. And I remember something happened in the meeting and I got up and I stormed out and I was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing and someone was holding me. And I put my arms around them and I remember just saying to them, I really don't want him to die. And they said to me, it's okay. I love you. And when I looked up, it was this woman. And it just all changed in that minute. And it just went. My resentment with her. And, yeah. And it, you know, through great pain comes great love, I suppose. You know, unconditional. Love thy neighbour as they would thy family. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Thanks, Katie.
Okay, that's the end of the share time, not the end of the meeting. Thank you, Jaynie, and thank you, Young.